It's not you. In this lesson, we're going to learn why traditional language learning might not work for you or might not have worked for you and what we can do about it. Why traditional language learning programs might not work for you. First is rigid structure. Second, time. And third, misleading descriptions. Rigid structure. Courses are usually divided into difficulty levels. This is true in academic settings as well as independent learning. For example, if I'm studying French, my school might offer French 1, 2, 3, or 4. If I'm in college, there might be a series 101, 102, advanced French grammar, etc., French literature. If I'm studying independently in courses like Pimsleur or Rosetta Stone, those courses might have numbers next to them. Usually programs start very easy and then suddenly become very difficult further on. I think this is very true with traditional school programs. For example, one of the first things we often teach students in middle and high school languages is greetings and how to survive in a classroom. The entire program tends to be structured around a set of grammar that starts very easy, things like talking about likes and dislikes and very basic, simple things, all the way up to very advanced structures that you often won't even hear students use in their own language. Independent study programs tend to be very, very good at this. So, for example, Pimsleur uses something called spaced repetition. And they're doing real-life dialogues that are themed, and they become more difficult, and they're constantly recycling what's presented. The problem with these difficult structures is that students are not usually given adequate real-world activities to apply them. It is research-based. Dr. Stephen Krashen, who we will explore in depth in another chapter and lesson, shares one of his 5 theories of language learning, and it's that we all master grammar in a certain order and at certain points. And this is called natural order. So we can't be a beginning level student really understanding and applying very advanced structures. We may understand them in theory, but the practice is completely different. Now, the problem for teachers is that they're often given a set of materials which are based on these old paradigms, this whole race through grammar, and they're required to get through certain things, whether or not it is conducive to real life communication. There isn't enough time. If you are going to a college course, you might have 45 hours and some lab time, depending on the level you're at, a semester. If you are in a traditional academic course, you might be studying for 100-something hours a year. It's going to take a lot of years to become functionally proficient in a language. It's also true for courses. A company might publish a series of courses, and getting through their entire series does not mean that the learner is advanced. Misleading descriptions. The way that levels are named are often relative to one another, and the programs are not well delineated. So for our purposes, I want to make sure that we're really clear on the words beginner, intermediate, and advanced, because oftentimes courses are named relative to one another. If you are a beginning language learner, you are actually in the actful novice range, or the Common European Framework for Reference A range, which means you are learning words and phrases. When you hit the end of this level, you become an actful intermediate or a common European frame of reference B level, which means you can create with language. You have enough words and phrases to make your own phrases and sentences. As you progress through this level, when you get to the end, you're going to be able to speak in paragraphs. And this is often what people consider to be fluent. And it matches up with that working proficiency in Category 1 languages, which are, by the way, languages that are very close to English, and they're the easiest to learn. If you are advanced, you're talking in strong paragraphs, and those become extended towards the top end of that level. So you might not be advanced if you're on course 3 of an independent study course. So just be mindful of it. So what can we do? So I really want to reiterate here that it's not you. If you're being diligent and finishing courses, it's not you. You're going to have to inform yourself what you're doing on how to truly apply time into learning a language. The Foreign Service Institute prepares American diplomats and consular workers to go abroad. Category 1 languages are languages that are close to English, Dutch, English, French, Italian, etc. They have a whole series which we'll discuss more in depth. But have an idea of roughly how long the language you want to learn takes. Some years ago, I suggested to some colleagues that they contact school districts or politicians about the problem with programs. I've seen so much improvement since I made that statement. So many teachers are teaching with something called CI, or comprehensible input, and their districts are encouraging and allowing them. So this change is certainly happening, and it's great. And people are focusing way less on grammar or getting through a book and real life communication. So that is a great change. Be informed with whatever materials you use before using them on an independent endeavor, independent basis. Also know that you're just going to need to change it up. And we'll talk more in detail about that later on. And be realistic. One of my very favorite courses is Pimsleur, and they tend to come in courses of 5 that have 30 lessons each. I feel very confident by the end of my Pimsleur 5 course. I feel that I understand lots of grammar. I feel like I can communicate. With that said, I need to do other things. Even though that's the highest level course that they offer, I'm far from my goals. Bear that in mind too, as you choose your materials every 5 weeks.